Добрий день всім.
Good afternoon, everybody. Ukraine Media Center to Ukraine Forum continues its work, and now I'm glad to introduce our guests. They are fighters from Belarusian battalion named after Kastus Kalinowski, Vadym Kabanchuk and Jan Melnikov. Vadym, Jan, you're welcome. Thank you for joining us today. Mr. Kabanchuk, could you please tell us about the activities of your battalion? You're welcome. Good afternoon. Our battalion has been part of International Legion. We announced about the creation of our unit on the 25th of March 2022. I have been in Ukraine since 2014. During some periods of time I was at the front lines in Donbass and anti-terrorist operation defending territorial integrity of Ukraine, and now we are implementing assignments within a completely Belarusian unit. Unfortunately, we all know about the support provided by Lukashenko regime for aggression against Ukraine to happen from the north, and that assault offensive towards Kyiv resulted from what was done by Lukashenko's regime. More than 600 rockets, aircraft, infrastructure, fuel, intelligence data. It has all been contribution of the Belarusian regime to this war against Ukraine. And when we created this battalion from Belarusians, I'm saying this without any excessive pathos. But we show with what we do that Belarusians are not the nation of aggressors. It's just a minority of Belarusians who support this war, this aggression. The same can be extrapolated to Belarusian army. We have some data that confirm that they don't want to engage in military action against Ukraine. It will be described in more detail by my comrade in arms, Jan. Jan, you're welcome. Well, hello, I'm Jan. I have been in Ukraine since 2014. I arrived to Ukraine in January 2014 when we had the revolution here. Next day after the murder of Zhizhnevsky. You know that he was my compatriot, a Belarusian citizen who lived in Ukraine for a long time, and he lost his life fighting for freedom of Ukraine. After that, many times Belarusians lost their lives in the front lines. I fought jointly with Belarusians. I fought for Ukraine, its territory, its freedom, its civilization choice in this war. And starting from that so-called pseudo-referendum in Donetsk and Luhansk People's Republic on the 18th of May, I was engaged in combat action in Donetsk and Luhansk Oblast, so-called separate districts of Donetsk and Luhansk Oblast. And I'm proud of the fact that now we, Belarusians in Ukraine, are able to have officially our national unit, being officially part of the armed forces of Ukraine, fighting jointly with Ukrainians and other people from more than 50 countries, especially during the recent events. I was jointly with guys from the UK, Brazil, Denmark, from all countries, from all continents, so this is an honor for me. Today, indeed, as my comrade in arms, Vadym, already said, we Belarusians who took arms in their hands here, we stand for the honor of Belarusian nation. We are brothers with Ukrainians, and this war is not waged by Belarusian people like it's in Russia, where the majority supports their leader. In Belarus, according to the data from various media and various opinion polls, various agencies, in Belarus, according to various estimates, about 25% of people, just 1/4 only, supports what Russia is doing in Ukraine today. Only 25%. So we can say that, based on our communication with people who stay in Belarus, who are conscripts, and those who are conscript soldiers, there is the same mood in Belarusian army. Generally, we have to understand that in Belarusian army, those in infantry units and artillery units who can carry out assault against Ukraine, it's maybe 15 to 20,000 approximately. And you have to understand that only 1/4 of those servicemen support what Russia is doing. Only 1/4 is that disease called racism or Russian world. And it's more terrible than all those Nazism of the 20th century. So, to say that Russian military can participate to the full extent in that military action on the Russian side, we cannot say that for all those reasons. Also, we understand and we know, like you all know, the Belarusian society on a large scale was against Belarusian involvement in this war. For example, my father personally was detained and arrested for 15 days for coming and for going to protest against use of Belarus in this and Belarusian territory in this war. For you to understand, now after 2020, if you go to streets in Minsk, after 2020, when we had those killings of protesters, of oppositioners, when we had those mass-scale oppression, when hundreds of people were injured and thousands of people, hundreds of thousands of people left Belarus, now to go to protest against the war in Minsk is like the same as going to protest against war in Crimea or Donetsk. And still we see a lot of people, thousands of people who went to the streets and they understood that they would be detained and kept in the most terrible conditions you cannot even imagine, in custody, when they are beaten almost to death. I'd like to emphasize that the Belarusian nation, the Belarusian people, the people of Belarus do not support, most of them do not support what Lukashenko and Putin are doing. Lukashenko has usurped the power, occupied the country. Belarus is a victim to internal and external occupation. And Lukashenko is a proxy of Kremlin. He is not independent in what he is doing. He completely follows the orders of Kremlin. Belarusians are now fighting for Ukraine on the Ukrainian side. There is no one Belarusian unit on the Russian side, and there is a Belarusian unit on the Ukrainian side. You see, all those opinion polls show what is our attitude towards Ukraine. Vadym, Jan, I would like to thank you and your comrades, your fighters fighting in international legions. And I would like to thank you on behalf of all Ukrainians that you are defending Ukrainian freedom, you are defending democracy. Thank you. But I cannot but ask about guerrilla movement in Belarus. We watch it and we hear that there are cases where railways are blown up, which are used, as we know, by the aggressor to transport its equipment and troops. Do you have any information about those operations? As my comrade in arms, Jan, said, after 2020, we got our civic spirits. There have been a lot of initiatives, citizens' initiatives, political initiatives. Some of them were anonymous, and they were pushing their agenda on the internet. And those initiatives joined guerrilla movement when the aggression against Ukraine started. First of all, I would like to mention cyber guerrilla. Cyber guerrilla, they ran several strong attacks against the cyber infrastructure, against the regime. And actually, those warriors somehow disrupted the operations of Belarusian railways. Then other initiatives joined, like by Paul. There are also those so-called wild guerrilla fighters, as we call them. We called also on behalf of the battalion, and our people, Belarusians, started guerrilla warfare. According to the information from the regime itself, they have facts about more than 80 sabotage acts in the Belarusian railways. They used significant forces to protect the railways, like internal troops and other units, like all those gendarme units, Belarusian KGB, organized crime units, and others. The latest arrests have been very cruel. There have been 3 guys from Belarus detained, and they shot at them in their legs. The government units did it in order to show that they have no limits in what they are doing. And there have been those latest amendments to Lukashenko's laws, and there is now up to capital punishment for sabotage, for those guerrilla action. So the regime has been much worried about those activities of the citizens of the society. Unfortunately, we don't have any data about explosions on railways, but we have data, we have information that those control equipment has been set to fire. There is very special equipment. They don't have it in Belarus, and because of sanctions, they don't have any sources to replace that railway equipment. In the same way, they made short circuit on the railway so that electronics would show that this part of the railway is occupied by some train or some obstacle. That's done on the mass scale. Also, Belarusian society has been gathering and passing intelligence data about Russia's movement, Russian troops' movement in Belarus. We have several strong channels. I think in Ukraine you know about those, including Gayun channel on Telegram. And people anonymously send photos, send videos, send those data. We and our battalion Telegram channel also received a lot of information which we passed to the respective Ukrainian agencies handling those situations. So basically, Lukashenko's regime has created a certain boomerang effect when hundreds of thousands of Belarusians were forced to leave the country after those events of 2020, 2021. So it's the basis for our recruitment. Maybe every 10th of those people who wrote to our battalion bot channel joined us, but most of those people have been helping us in information resistance, in guerrilla fight, and we have strong base there in Belarus waiting for us. And we dream of that time when we will be able to liberate Belarus. And we know that Belarusians on the mass scale support us. They wait for us to start actions to liberate Belarus, the territory of Belarus. Thank you, dear colleagues. You're welcome to ask your questions for our guests. Please introduce yourself and please speak into the microphone. Are there any questions? I'm Vladislav Obuk from Ukrinform. My first question is a practical one about your activities in support of Ukraine and in support of the future of Belarus. We know that I know that in addition to Kastus Kalinowski Battalion, your battalion, also in Ukraine, in March, there was that Pagonia unit created. Has there been any consolidation of those units under joint command, or how do those Belarusian units act in Ukraine? This is the first question. And my second question is maybe half rhetorical one. It's about changing rhetorics of that self-proclaimed Belarusian President Lukashenko. Now, he has somehow, I think, hinted that what is going in Ukraine now is not any special operation, and he, as Putin says, but war. And he has said something against Putin. What does it mean? Is it about some changes in his mind? Or is it some self-protection? Or we just cannot trust his words when he says that Belarus will never assault against Ukraine? I'll say a couple of words, if I may, about changes in Lukashenko's rhetorics. If you monitored the Lukashenko's regime's attitude toward, you know, he has been in power for 27 or 26 years, and I think that over those 27 years, the key part of his activities was, you know, he tried to sit on two chairs at the same time, so to say. And when it was advantageous to him, he would somehow between West and Russia, and you know, he can change his footwear while flying, as we say it. About consolidation of units, about Pagonia, we know their coordinators, we spoke with them, we had contacts with them. Currently, we cannot say that this unit has actively joined the defense of Ukraine, that Pagonia unit. Maybe we don't have full information, but that's the information we have at the moment. But we welcome every initiative, also those which are unrelated to our battalion. The more Belarusians joins the active defense of Ukraine, the more experience we get, and the more people will learn about us in Ukrainian society. They will know that Belarusians are not only about those collective farms, those nice roads and so on. Belarusians are also people who want freedom for their country and who want democracy for their country. And I'd like to add something about Lukashenko sending their emissaries to Europe for some separate and unofficial negotiations to have those sanctions lifted. He tried to do that trick several times, and there is a big danger, you know, if you try and come to terms to Lukashenko for some tactical advantages, tactical benefits like fuel or other goods, you know, there is this then contraband hub to circumvent sanctions, and Putin's regime will use it to extend this war. So instead of killing those two regimes, instead of strangling them, you'll give them a chance. This is very dangerous. And we have people whom we personally know who are in prison under Lukashenko's regime, and they say, don't trade with this regime. It's like taking hostages, you know. He takes hostages and he'll release those political prisoners in exchange for lifting of sanctions. But punitive measures will not stop. They take more prisoners every day. There are court hearings every day. And there is some vicious circle. You know, now we can break this circle, because the first and foremost reason of this war, as we all know, is Putin's regime. If Putin's regime is stopped in Ukraine, then Lukashenko's regime will not survive 1 week longer than Putin's regime. We are confident about that. Any more questions? Thank you. Any more questions? Friends, you're welcome.
From Italy, Giuseppe Fasano from Corriere. Good morning. You said before, if I understood, that you are in touch with others, foreign soldiers. And are you in touch with some Italian soldier? Just because I'm Italian, I'm interested in this. And then you saw that 25% of Belarus people, it's supporting what Russian do it here. Only 25, but
Sorry, but only 7% are ready to fight with
okay,
Russia
Okay, okay.
from this 25%.
Okay, but my question is, how many people support what in your country, what you are doing here, your foreign legion? Thank you.
Про бейсов скажешь, это лейсов?
Да. Sorry, my English is not very well.
Ви можете
Intermediate level,
українською.
but, да, I am, буду отвечать.
I will answer in Ukrainian. So, I had 2 meetings over this time. I met twice the Italian guys who were with us. One of them was in the Legion, so he served in the French Foreign Legion at some point in time. But generally, you know, I can't remember any one country from which I would not see a soldier here. There are Baltic countries, Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania. There is Poland, there is Czech Republic, there is Germany. There are Scandinavian, Nordic countries, Norway and Sweden. Most countries are here. Now, about those 25%, whether they support it, 25% are people who say that, yes, I believe that was right to do it. But when they are asked whether you are ready to personally participate in that war on the Russian side, only 7% agreed. So there is huge support from Belarus. For you to understand, you know, probably I'll say the truth by saying that half of those who wanted to join our battalion are people from Belarus. But even if it's not 50%, then definitely 40% of those people, you know, who wrote our Telegram bot wanted to join. There is huge support from Belarus. I see it even, you know, when I just speak with people, you know, it's war, and it's war which is not in the territory of Belarus, but when I speak with my relatives, some of them are in their offices, some people have relatives, some people always have relatives who watch it. You know, we have our internet resources on Facebook and Telegram, and they are now named as terrorist resources. If you subscribe to those resources of ours, to our Facebook page, for example, to our Telegram channel, you may be brought to criminal liability just for that. And even in this situation, my mother tells me that her friends who are older than 50 years old, they look for information on the internet, and we see information about those visits, about our subscribers. We have had about 30,000 subscribers on Telegram, but we see the total number of visits who visited our page about 100,000 sometimes. So I'd like to add about Italians. When we were in the voluntary unit in 2016 and 2017 in Marinka, in the city of Marinka, I met Italian warriors there. There were 2 or 3 of those guys. Unfortunately, I don't remember their call signs, but I remember that there were people who would be joking all the time. Even though they didn't fully understand Ukrainian, they performed their duties in checkpoints. They were cheerful guys. They were helping to check cars and all that. They were merry guys. Sometimes they would speak Italian, and the only thing I learned then was, "Scusa me, non parlo italiano." Thank you. Any more questions? No more questions? There is a question.
From Austria, 7 Ocean Pictures. I have a question about the supply. Where does your battalion get the supply? Is it from the Ukraine or is it from Belarus?
Так як ми входимо в склад Збройних сил України, ми є частиною з офіційним номером, це і частина іноземний легіон. Зрозуміло, що все постачання, що дотично літальної зброї, боєприпасів і так далі, воно йде від Збройних сил України. Ну, нам дуже багато привозять з волонтерської допомоги і фактично більша частина білоруської діаспори, вона зараз працює на забезпечення нашого підрозділу. За це велике дякую.
Так, користуючись моментом, хотів би виказати свою велику подяку діаспорі Бельгії, яка допомагає одна з найбільших діаспорі Британії, білоруській діаспорі в Британії, білоруській діаспорі в Польщі, в першу чергу, бо взагалі, в принципі, вся логістика допомоги йде через Варшаву, через Польщу. От. Взагалі нас підтримують діаспори з Італії, привіт, з Німеччини. Та взагалі, в принципі, з кожної країни Європи, Франція, да. От. Ну, ось. Це найбільш потужні, я вам зараз такі підкреслив. Взагалі, в принципі, з Америки, да, теж не треба не забувати, амуніція добра поступає саме з Америки до нас.
Дякую вам, дякую за вашу чудову українську. Друзі, дякую, що приєдналися до нас.
Дякую вам.
Друзі, я вам нагадаю, що о 14:30 до нас завітає Олександр Матузяник, речник Міністерства оборони України, який розповість про ситуацію на фронті. Дякую, залишайтесь з нами.
Thank you.